When it comes to Amazon returns, sometimes you can get a good deal. Now, this did not come in its original box, as you can see, but what we got here is an Asrock motherboard. This is the PG ITX TB4 socket 1700. It's a Z790 motherboard, if I didn't say that. Anyway, this is, of course, like I said, not the original box, but sometimes you get the original box, sometimes you don't. It might depend on the box quality when it gets returned. Maybe it's too damaged to send back out. So they repackage it kind of in some bubble wrap. It does look like we got all the contents in here that would have originally come with it. I'm hoping. I didn't actually go ahead and look that all up, but as long as I'm satisfied with it, well, let's put it this way. On Amazon, they're going for about $350 for this particular motherboard, and I paid $187 for this. So that's, you know, more than half of the savings. Well, no, actually about half of the savings exactly. So, you know, not getting the box, still getting this, still getting the Amazon return warranty. If for some reason nothing works on this, or we decide it just doesn't work, I can send it right back. So there's no problem with that. But what we're going to do is we're going to get this out of the box. I'm going to show you kind of how it comes. Again, I did open this just to see if there's any damage on it, but it looked pretty good. So we got our CPU and our RAM, and I'll have to get a power supply. We'll hook it up outside the case. We'll do a BIOS update. We will, well, make sure do a BIOS update, and then install Windows. And as long as that all works, then it's something I'm going to keep and do a little project with later on. So if you want to follow along with this and see what you get on an Amazon return, stay right there. All right, so if we open up the bubble wrap here, you can kind of see how it came. Actually, this was not on top of it, but we do get the Wi-Fi antenna. And this is how it did come. So it came in an anti-static bag. We get one rubber band SATA, two SATA cables. So they're both straight connectors. I don't know if that's what it came with or not, to be honest. No, we do get 190, sorry. So there's a 90 and a straight. We get one M.2 connector, or screw. Now this came with a PG button, and I'm like, where am I gonna put that? I don't know if there's a spot on the motherboard you're supposed to put that, but it's for a keyboard. Why would I change out my keyboard key for this? I don't know. And we get some straps. Now, I have a feeling we might be missing another M.2. I don't know if this only came with one M.2 or two or three M.2 sockets on it, or slots. So, and this actually was on, this was covering, I'm going to tell you something right here. So once we get this unwrapped, this is a socket cover for the CPU. This is what came on it. Now, then this was just placed in the socket, and with the latch just hanging on it. So there's no way to actually latch this down and secure it. So that's a little ridiculous. So I did have to mention that. So let's get this out here. And here is the, it did come with a cover, so I just put the cover back on it. So in case I'm moving it around, I don't know why they would put that on it versus putting this back on it. These are very easy to reinstall. And this is the way you have to reinstall them anyway if you're doing a RMA. Anyway, this comes with, this thing is packed full. And let me get you zoomed in here and let's just check this out. All right, so I thought I'd get a little more personal with you here as far as the board goes, but we do have your M.2 spot right here. It looks like it's just for one. We have a reinforced PCIe slot by 16 right here. Only two RAM stick slots. And we have our power for the motherboard right here. We have our I/O connection right here. It's not down here on the normal spot of things. Yeah, I just had to double check because I see some more connections here. I'm not too sure what those are, but that is our front panel connection. We have a one port for our USB Type 3. We have a Type C. We have three SATA ports, looks like we have a reset button, might be a CMOS reset, not quite sure. Yep, that's the CMOS reset button right there. And we have a few fan header connections up there. We have one RGB. So yeah, looks pretty good. And if we go around to the back, we do have two more M.2 SATA or M.2 connections. And I believe both of these are 4.0. We have a screw for this one, and it looks like we're missing a screw up here, so that's not good. And if we look at the I/O, well, let's look at the I/O together. So we have HDMI, we have a display port. Both of those can be used at the same time for dual monitor. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 3.2 Gen 1 ports, and 2 of them being Thunderbolt. So that's pretty cool. We have one 2.5 gigabit connection, and we also have 6E Wi-Fi on this. And there is your audio. Now the audio is not going to be the absolute best on something that's small, but at least they give it to you. All right, let's go ahead and get our M.2 installed by taking these 2 screws off. They may be captive screws, so just be careful on that. Now this is a wood table, so it's not conductive, so I don't have anything else I really want to put this on right now. Let's go ahead and take that off. We do have our thermal pad, so we can tell that somebody did install something because it no longer has the peely sticker on it. I have here, I don't believe there's anything on it, but I do have a 2 terabyte Western Digital 850X. So this should give us about 7,000 plus megabytes a second. And we're just going to stick that in there like that. We're going to grab our M.2 screw, pull this down. I'm surprised these guys don't have the quick latch system on here like Asus and Gigabyte do. But there we go. Let's put our heatsink right back on. These don't need to be critically super tight, just snug. Okay, that's not going anywhere. Now, I do have the brand new, well, this is brand new in a box, but this is not like new or anything, of course. This is the Core i5-13400F, so this is going to require a graphics card, which I do have my 1060 that I'm going to hook up. That's the only spare one that I do have right now. Now, of course, this CPU also comes with its own cooler, so we do not have to provide it with anything off the shelf or aftermarket. So there's our CPU, and what we're going to do here is there's a little retention lever right here. We're just going to push down, pull away a little bit, and up, and that's going to release this. We're going to pull this up, and we can actually just pop this cover right off. And you're going to notice, I'm going to turn this around a little bit. That's okay that that dropped. It's not going to hurt anything. So you can see it a little bit better. Anyway, we have a couple of notches. There's a notch there, and there's a notch over there, and the same at the top. Also, you do have a triangle. So typically, I just line up the notches, and the writing should go up and down on this particular one. So we're going to line it up just like that, and drop it in. And when it gets in there, just to give it a little wiggle. If it twists, you know you don't have it properly seated. But otherwise, if you wiggle it and it doesn't go anywhere, you're pretty good to go. Now we're going to close this just by giving it some force, downward pressure, just like this. Go around that little tab and in. Now on this one, on this fan, we do have some pre-applied thermal paste, which we're not going to change out because this is merely a test. So that is the stock Intel. And what we have to do is our chassis fans are back here. So we want to orient this so our cable comes out the back. And I know it's kind of hard to see, so let me just back you away just a little bit. What we're going to do here is just put this right down in here like so. Just like that. And we're looking pretty good. We'll do one corner, push the other corner, that corner, and then that corner. We're installed. And now I'm going to take our fan cable. Okay, so the first one right here is the CPU fan. And I can see it's labeled directly over the RGB connection, but that's fine. So we're going to put it right here. And then later on, you can zip tie that up, whatever you want to do. Now for the RAM, I've got this DDR5 Trident Z, and it's RGB. And on RAM, you do have that little notch. The notch is different from DDR4 to DDR5. You have to line it up with the notch that's in here. And we're going to open up those tabs. I'll get you a little shot here, but there's tabs on that side, no tabs on this side. And you go one side. And I don't have that. I have that backwards. That is my fault. And we're going to slip it right in just like, well, just like that. There we go. It's one side. There's the other side. Okay. Do the same on this one. There we go. That's locked in. I just had to give it a little assistance locking it in. All right, so I got my trusty little switch here. We're just gonna hook up the power. I'm not worried about LED lights on it or anything like that, but we're gonna hook up the power switch to there. So we got our power supply hooked up, we got our CPU, our RAM, and that. So the last thing that we're gonna need is an actual graphics card, because otherwise we're gonna get no post. I do need to get I feel like I need to get a test bench, so this will be a little easier in a way. Or a different graphics card that doesn't require supplemental power. So, okay, now, that's all hooked up, but I do want to face this towards you somehow. Maybe you want to see the wires? Yeah, that way you can see not only the wires, like you care about the wires, but you can see the actual RAM light up. Maybe you'll be able to see the fan spin up. Now, traditionally, what I'd like to do in the future is have this monitor out here, so at least during a first post, we can actually see it. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to use the OBS software and hopefully get an image out. That way, you'll be able to see it. And I'll try to sort of stand out of the way, so if the OBS for some reason doesn't capture it the way I hope it will, you'll be able to kind of see what's going on. Our power supply is now on. And here we go with our button. Boom, it's on. There is a little LED light here. I don't know if you can see that. RAM is lit up. We are waiting for a signal. GPU fan is spinning. This could take a couple reboots, and it's trying to train the memory because it's the first time seeing this particular one. So let's just be patient. I just want to make sure that that is connected. So far, no signal, but let's just give this a little bit more time to see what's going to happen. All right, so I don't know what it's doing. There we go. There is our post right there. Boom. And now we can push F1 to continue, press F2 or delete to run the setup. So if we push, I think what we want to do is F2. Oh, I don't have a keyboard hooked up to this. Okay, we're going to make sure our mouse is on. Our keyboard is on. We're going to plug this anywhere in the back of the board here. And okay, so we have mouse. So this is all looking good, pretty good so far. We have 13th gen, the 13400F. That's our motherboard right there. Oh, it does say the version is 9.02. So that's interesting. The UEFI, so that's basically the BIOS version, which is strange. It displays it that way. I'm just not used to Asrock. This is my first time actually doing an Asrock BIOS update. So we have 64 gigs of RAM installed. Let's go ahead and grab a BIOS and let's see if we need to flash anything. And this is a Asrock. Let's see. Oops. Asrock PG. Well, let's actually call it a Z790. And then PG ITX /TB4. Okay, so it's our first one right there. And this looks right. Here's the main website. It has this little follow thing. That's kind of weird. It just follows you around. All right, so up at the top here, this is not what we want. We want to scroll down here to where it says support. And look at that. We have BIOS. And let's look for, there it is right there, 9.02. So look how many BIOSes we are out of date. So let's go ahead and that's update method. I don't know what that is. That might be flashing it from here, which we don't want. We want to just download it from here. And then we plug in our USB device, and then we're going to delete that because that's from another machine for the BIOS update. And we can exit out of that. All right, now we can exit out of this whole thing. We can come to our manila envelope. Not this PC. We want download folder. And we're going to get rid of this. We don't need this. And this we don't need. So we're going to extract this, or right click, extract all. Or extract right back to the same folder. We're going to grab this file. You can drag and drop or copy and paste, however you like it. That's the file that we need. Paste it into there. All right, now I'm going to remove it out of my Dark Dragon build. So now that I have the BIOS on this thumb drive, what we're going to do is we're going to stick it in any of the USB ports back here. I'm just going to put it in a 2.0 port, but it really doesn't matter. And now I have to figure out how to update this. So I'm assuming we're going to go to Tools, because I don't see anything else on the screen. I'm just looking. I may be missing it because this is not my forte. I haven't done this one yet, but let's see. Instant Flash, or I'm guessing that that's it. Intel ME Flash. We don't want that. So I'm thinking that it's this one. Please suspend BitLocker and any encryption or security relying on the TPM. Make sure you want to have already stored and backed up. But you have already stored and backed up the BitLocker, the recovery key. Okay. Yeah. Yes to continue. And do you want to update the UEFI? Yeah, so we want the 14.01, so that's it. And this is where you walk away. I've said this numerous times, and I'm not saying you guys have not walked away, but this is just let it do its thing. The PC is probably going to reboot a couple of times. Let it do its thing. Don't touch anything. Don't try to get out of any windows, etc. Don't unplug your USB. And most important, don't unplug the power. So if you're in a position, even like me here, I've got wires everywhere and cables going everywhere. Try to avoid, getting tangled up in them and removing the power by somehow. All right, right here, it does say programming successful. Press enter to reboot the system. All right. That's a little different than Asus. Asus usually has a countdown timer or just times out and it'll do it on its own. That didn't seem like it was going to do it on its own, so we just helped it along there. And of course, this is also different from MSI. If you notice from MSI reboots, in order to get into the M-Flash, you click on it and that actually reboots into an M-Flash mode. So Asus and this one do not. And they're all just a little bit different, but they're all relatively the same. And the screen went black. There's our post again here. Well, that's our logo. Okay, now it's going through another reboot. So again, just be patient. Nothing's wrong at this point. Both of our fans are still spinning. And it looks like our screen went black again, so we should be seeing something. And there we go, we're back into the BIOS. And at the top, if you can see that right there, whether I'm zoomed in or we're looking at this, but that is 14.01. So we are at the latest BIOS, which is great. It's exactly what we want. And of course, this is your overclock tweaker, which I wouldn't recommend too much with this board. You might be able to overclock your memory. So, you know, some XMP or something like that if you wanted to do that. But otherwise, I keep it stock. I've never really gone through this. Look at that, hardware monitor. So that's kind of neat. I like that. So you can see our CPU temperature right there at the top is 38.5 degrees Celsius. And it gives you the Fahrenheit also. This is actually pretty nice. I like this. Okay, so at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to shut down the PC. Since we are all good with that, we're going to remove our BIOS. And now it's time to install Windows 11. Now this is probably a version old, so I'll have to do some updates, but let's get this going. So we're going to put it in any flash drive. Now this one, you should be putting in a 3.0 or higher port. So my highest port on here is the 3.0, so we'll put it right in the same one it was in, actually. I thought that was a 2.0 port I was in. And what we're going to do is kick this back on and give our little go signal. And this should boot right up into Windows because there was nothing on that other drive and that I know of. I may have put something on it and taken it off, but regardless, we should go right into the Windows boot up screen, is my hope. So we are loading Windows right there. I can see it. And here we go. We are English, next, install now. And if you don't have a product key, which I do not have a product key. Now we want to install Windows 11 Pro. We're going to go to next. Accept the terms and conditions. Custom installation. Okay, so it appears that I do have some sort of a partition, so that's okay. We're going to delete and delete that one too. And there we go. So that's the only one we should be seeing. We're going to go next. And now Windows Files is taking over, going from the USB drive over to our main M.2 NVMe. So if you ever bought a new PC from a store, this is what you would see. During your first boot up, this is what you would see. And this is where they remove it. So you can customize all your settings as you go and set up your own Wi-Fi, etc. All right, so at this point, completely safe to remove this USB stick for Windows 11 states. And we're going to pick the US. Second keyboard layout, we want to skip that. And this is getting connected to Wi-Fi, which we technically do not want. So right now it's not letting us through, so there is a step to doing this, and I'm going to show you how. Okay, if you get to this step, what you want to do is, I'm kind of trying to look two different directions here, but what we want to do is actually hit Shift F10. So Shift, there we go, OOBE. What was it again? Oh yeah, OOBE, BE, backslash, and bypass NRO and hit enter. This will reboot into the same spot, and then it'll allow you to skip past this. Don't ask me why they're trying to force you. They're trying to force you to get into Windows through a Microsoft account. That's their whole goal. But luckily this still works, and hopefully it'll continue to work, and they won't force you to have a Microsoft account in the future. So I think when you're at this part, you should do that anyway, because it makes you go through all these steps again, which is so ridiculous. We're going to do that. We're going to skip the keyboard layout. And then, see right here, now it says I don't have internet. Now you can do that. And then continue with limited setup. That's how you get past the Wi-Fi. Now, we could have done it. I do have Ethernet down here now, and I could have just hooked that up and we would have been fine. But again, then it wants you to create a Microsoft account, so we don't want that. So what are we going to put in here? What should be the name of this if we were going to put it in a build? I don't know yet, so we're just going to call it, let's just call it user for now. User. And we're going to skip the password, so you just go next. We do not want a password associated with it. All these, location I keep on, but find my device I turn off. The diagnostic data, the ink and typing, the tailored experience. So all this stuff I normally turn off. And just like that, now this is just going to bring us right into Windows. And then I can hook up to Ethernet, and we can test out the Wi-Fi too, but you know, I'm not going to show all my Wi-Fi spots, so that's kind of pointless. So I'm just going to hook it up to Ethernet, and away I go. All right, so as we can see, we are in Windows now. There's nothing going on. We have no internet. So what I'm going to do here is I've got a cable right here. We're going to go ahead and just get it plugged in. And we should see down there, that little globe down there should turn into the internet. If everything's working properly, there we go. And now we can go through our updates. Go right here, go into settings. Under settings, it says Windows updates. That's what we're going to click on. Right now, it's already doing the check. And we're going to be populating with a whole bunch of updates, probably even a new Windows update also. And when I say Windows update, like the version of Windows, so like Windows 11, 20, what is it, 23H2 or 23H1, whatever one we're on. So if you give this a moment, this will start. And what I'm going to do is probably get all the Windows updated, and then I'm going to come back, and then we're going to test out the drives. But it's going to be instantaneous for you. So as soon as those all update, then we're going to go and test out the drive and see how that works. And maybe even put a couple drives on the back and make sure those ports actually work before I go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to keep this thing. So all the updates are done, and I just installed a drive in each of these slots. Now, this one right here, one of them, I should say, can support M.2 NVMe by 4 and SATA. And the other one's just NVMe by 4. But they're all three of them are NVMe by 4. It's Gen 4 by 4. So anyway, we got one on here that is a Gen 4 by 4. Well, they're both Gen 4 by 4, but just one's a little bit slower at about 5,000 megabytes a second. The other one should read about 7,000. And the one on the front, the Type C, should run at about 7,000. But we're going to go ahead and get Crystal Disk Mark installed. And, well, not installed, but we're going to use those for the test. And get those running so we can just test out the drives as long as those are good. then we know that this whole motherboard is functioning pretty much as it should, other than a few other components that I haven't hooked up. Like, I'm not going to check the SATA. The Type-C connection, I'm not going to be able to check, but we have at least checked this, so we know that this works, and we're all set there. Oh, that was Crystal Disk info, but that's okay. So at least we can check out. So we have disk. I don't know why it says disk 1 and then D. Huh. Well, it's definitely running a little hot. Okay, so this is another thing. So when you install those on the back, we really should install ones that have heat sinks on them. If not, or if the motherboard won't allow it because it may hit the back of like your case that you're putting it in, what you want to do is downgrade and put in the cheaper M.2. So the one you can see is running hot, and I guarantee you, yeah, this one is the 2 terabyte. The other one is actually good because it's a much slower running one. So with that said, even though it's running a little hot, all right, so here's Crystal Disk Mark. We're going to remove that. Okay, so here's our C drive. Let's go ahead and do a test. We're only going to do the top section. That's the most I'm concerned about. We should see about 7,000 on this. And there we go. 6933. Now that is the reads. The writes typically are a little slower, and by 200-300 megabytes, but it could be actually very close to the same on these. Just as I expected. We'll just let this finish, but it should finish about the same right there, and then we'll move on to the next drive. Oh, the other drive might not be initialized, so I have to initialize it. That's okay. We're going to do the D drive because the other drive was brand new. This one was still in the package. We should see very, very close to the same numbers. This is the faster drive, by the way. And I'll bet you it's getting pretty toasty. We could have... I wonder if we can open them both up at the same time. If it'll allow us to run both incidences. It's only at 63. That's what it says. So 69 and almost 7,000 and 60, almost 6,700. We're just waiting for this to complete. There we go. Okay, now what we're going to do is initialize the other drive. So we're going to do a right click on the Windows. We're going to come up to disk management, and it should auto populate. Yep, right there. There's another disk involved. We want GPT partition. We're going to click OK. And then we're just going to go down here where it's uninitialized. We're going to create a new simple volume. Click next, click next. E drive, that's fine. I don't really care. Default NTFS, and away it would go. Now it's initialized. Now, so that's the drive we just checked. Or is it this one? No, we did the D. So let's get out of there. So we want to check the E drive now. So as we're checking this, let's just let's look at the temp as we're checking. Now I could use the hardware info, but I just don't have it installed here right now. So let's see if we can watch this at the same time. And see, now we have the E drive, which is at 61. So we're on E. Let's go ahead and test that. Let's see if how much it warms up if it does. Okay, so obviously we can tell this is the slower drive, but it's performing exactly how it should, even though it's the slower drive. Yep, I was expecting about 5,000, so that's good enough. And the temperature doesn't look like it jumped at all, and I don't know if this is real-time reading. Ah, see, it wasn't. It went all the way up to 86. Okay, that's pretty warm. And now it's saying it's a bad drive. So I would not recommend running that at all. That is not good. Now the temperature has dropped. Okay, so there's a little lesson learned there. Let's talk about that. So my recommendation for the back for these, I would recommend putting in like the SATA one in this spot. But my first, if I really needed the speed, then I would probably try and order these with the heatsink. The heat sinks can be pretty thick. So if you start getting into too thick, this is not going to mount to a motherboard, or that the motherboard's not going to mount to the actual case with the way that that would sit. And I would quite frankly, you know, you might need taller standoffs. Maybe you can find taller standoffs for the actual case and then put the heat sinks on these and then you might be okay. Otherwise, I would go with the SATA one. And the other one, if you get the slower drive, which won't get quite as hot, I would probably get the shortest depth or tall, if you will, heat sink on it. See if that works. In addition, I wouldn't use that to put a lot of games on or anything. I would actually use a smaller drive so you're not, you know, heating it up too much. But anyway, that's just kind of here nor there. You did see it get hot, so it is what it is. And I think it does push the drive a little bit on those, so you take that with a grain of salt. But anyway, yeah, this is a great little piece of. Oh yeah, I can actually take this peely peel off now. Let's go. Oh, very sexy. So that's it. So if you're in the market to buy something that's about half off, you may have good luck as I did. Just know that you may not get as lucky as that, and you may have to send it back. So if you're in a rush to get something done and you really want to get up and start gaming or editing, or you need another computer, I would go with brand new. But if you have some time to spare and you want to save a few dollars, definitely look into something like that, to where, you know, you got to pull it out of the box and make sure everything's good. Check all the pins, check especially the CPU socket, and check all the input outputs in the back and make sure no pins are bent. All those things matter. Check to see if there's any real big scratches on the motherboard. Check in the back. I was missing a motherboard or a M.2 screw, so there's probably one or two little things that I was missing in there. But I have extra things that I can get this to work. The only thing we didn't check is the actual Wi-Fi. But now in this house, I really don't need too many Wi-Fi motherboards. I can have everything hooked up, especially down here via Ethernet cable. So that's the only thing we didn't check is the Wi-Fi. But other than that, I think this thing was a steal for what it is and what it's capable of doing. It's not too bad for $187. And like I said, I checked on Camel, which is the website that compares or checks Amazon prices. And the lowest it ever was I think $288. And that was back last year. So in 2023, that was the lowest it got. And it was only for a short time, like a couple, 2 or 3 weeks. And the highest it ever was like $450, I think, or $430, somewhere in there. You can check it. I don't remember, but I know it was over 400 and was under 300 for the cheapest. And right now they're at about 350. And this thing I got for 187. I know I keep repeating myself, but anyway, that's going to do it. I'm going to wrap this thing up. Go ahead and comment down below and let me know what you would do with this. Would you buy something like this? Would you not? And give this thing a thumbs up, please, to show support and keep the YouTube algorithm going. And yeah, that's about it. And oh, don't forget to subscribe. Hit that little bell icon next to the subscription button to get notified for any future videos that I do post. And until next time, take care.